Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Train Aid HQ. My name is Nick, and in today's video, we are going to be looking at the Level 3 Award in Education and Training, and we're going to be understanding how to complete the Learner Assessment Pack. So once again, thank you very much for watching today's video. Please do like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive the latest news and alerts from the team. So one of the most requested videos is to explain to all about the learner assessment packs. As we know, with the Level 3 awards in education and training, you need to carry out a 15-minute micro teach lesson, but also to observe three fellow classmates on your course. So you need to conduct 3 peer observations. So the purpose of today's video, we're going to have a look at an example of a completed learner assessment pack to show you the level of detail you need to be writing within the peer observation forms. But also, we are just going to show you how to complete one of these as well. Okay, so in front of me, we have a completed learner assessment pack to give you an idea of the level of detail required. So as we can see, we have the learner details. That's you who is going to be obviously completing the learner assessment pack. So please put your name in here. I put my name in just as an example, and also the course location as well. So I have wrote classroom and the location being London as well. So you could have classroom Manchester, for example. You could also have webinar course as well. So you just need to write in whether you are doing a classroom course, a webinar course, or the online self-paced qualification as well. Please also put the course dates in here as well. So just where it says date, you can obviously put in the course dates you've attended there. Now, if we scroll down, we are just going to have a look at obviously the centre details. This will be filled in for you. So we have the centre name, centre number, the address, the telephone number. Please, can you write in the tutor name and also the assessor name as well? And the IQA name is my colleague Tom Castley as well. So please, can you input the tutor and the assessor name? That will be obviously the same as well. Now, if we go on to the peer observation forms, so obviously there are 3 peer observation forms to complete. We're just going to have a look at the criteria, and we're just going to show you 3 examples, and this is hopefully going to be useful so you can show it shows you the required level of detail. And as you can see here, we have peer observation 1. Okay, so this has been taken from one of my courses. This is me completing 3 peer observation forms. So we're just going to show you, as mentioned, the level of detail here. So we have peer observation 1. You need to write the title of the session. So this one has been done for you. So this session was on an introduction to recycling. The name of the observer, that is you. So obviously I've written my name here, as you can see, and you need to write the name of the learner. So that's the name of the learner who's conducting their own micro teach. So Stuart was the learner. He was conducting a micro teach lesson on an introduction to recycling as well. And also please put the date in there. So hopefully this is nice and easy and straightforward to follow as well. So just remember, you have to complete 3 of these on your micro teach day. Okay, so as we can see here, we've got the criteria on the left-hand side, and in the middle, we have a yes or no column. And on the right-hand side, we have describe and give examples. So we'll just come over to those very shortly. So let's have a look at the criteria first. So when you are observing your peer, you need to answer each of the criteria. So let's have a look at the first criteria. So did the learner introduce themselves and create a rapport with the learner. So that's obviously at the beginning of the lesson. Did they introduce themselves? Did they create a good rapport with the learner? So did they introduce themselves? Did they perhaps do an icebreaker? Were they relaxed? Did they create a good rapport with the group? And here you need to write a yes or a no. Okay. It doesn't matter if you put a yes or a no. As we know, the micro teach is a developmental experience. It's a 15-minute lesson. So look at your teaching strengths and to highlight any areas for development as well. So for this example, I've put yes. And it says describe and give examples. So Stuart conducted a suitable icebreaker to find out learners' previous knowledge of the subject. Okay, so in terms of level of detail, we're looking for typically 2 to 3 lines of information. So you can obviously handwrite into this learner assessment pack, or you can type directly onto the learner assessment pack here. But we are looking to see typically 2 to 3 lines. If you simply put yes, then we will ask for you to elaborate more on that. So once again, it's absolutely fine for you to write no, but you need to write a reason why. So basically, what did you see? Okay. Once again, with this form, you can obviously put no, okay, and then you just need to write the reasons there. Okay. So mine was a yes. Okay. So Stuart did a very good introduction to the lesson there. The next key criteria is, did the learner state the learning outcomes? So this is where the learner is stating the overall aim and the outcomes, or the objectives of the lesson. So the outcomes, the objectives, they are the same thing. Okay, so I've put yes, and as obviously we can see here, Stuart stated the lesson aim and learning outcomes at the beginning of the lesson. Stuart asked if anyone had any questions. So I think that it's always very good to state the learning aim and outcomes of the lesson, so your learners understands, they acknowledge what is being taught there. As we go through the observation form, we have the next criteria. Did the learner prepare materials which met the individual needs of the learners? So I guess that question is looking at, was the lesson prepared? Think about the resources used, the room setting, the classroom layout. Was the lesson organized? And also, did the materials, the actual resources, were they user friendly? Did everyone understand the content, the materials? And what I have written here is yes. Stuart used PowerPoint slides and visual aids, and these were utilized throughout the lesson to promote the learner's understanding of the topic. So to answer this question, yes, the materials were straightforward, they're user friendly, everyone was engaged, no one was confused within the lesson there. The next question is, did the learner include the entire group during the session? So as a teacher, we like to see that everyone was included within the group. You could obviously ask questions to the group. You could ask both open, nominated questions. You could utilize paired work within your micro teach well. So it's best to include everyone within your 15-minute micro teach lesson as well. So I've ticked yes. Stuart included the entire group with the discussion of the topic and also the video task as well. As we can see, we're going for 2 to 3 lines in terms of level of detail. When obviously observing your peers, we don't want you to write lots, because it's more important that you do obviously observe the micro teach as much as possible. The next criteria is, did the learner give positive and constructive feedback to the group when the opportunity was presented to do so? So once again, for this criteria, we're hoping to see that you can be a positive teacher, that you can obviously provide constructive feedback, you can use praise, and give that individual feedback as well. So for this micro teach, Stuart demonstrated a positive, a warm and a supportive approach and listened to all learners. So demonstrated active listening and gave feedback to all learners' questions there. Next criteria is looking at teaching and learning approaches. Okay, so teaching and learning approaches, this is just another keyword for the types of activities that you will use within your lesson, your micro teach. So it could be things such as group work, paired work, discussions, debates, demonstrations. It could be a video activity. So for this lesson, I've said yes, that was a clear tick. Stuart demonstrated a range of teaching approaches, such as nominated and open questions, discussions, and group work as well. 15 minutes is a very, very short window. You might only see 2 different teaching approaches, and that's fine. Okay, so 15 minutes, once again, is that short time frame. We're not expecting you to see loads and loads of different approaches. Maybe 1 or 2 is sufficient here. So the next criteria is, did the learner carry out suitable assessment to meet the individual needs of learners? So for this question is, did the learner perhaps carry out a suitable initial assessment? So an icebreaker. Was there any assessment taking place within the lesson? So this could be, were there any formative questions? Were there any type of assessments? Were learners' knowledge being checked? It could be through maybe a quiz or a game, perhaps a paired work activity. So we're just looking to see, did the learner sort of check in with the students within the lesson to test their knowledge? And so I've put tick yes. Stuart conducted a quiz at the end of the lesson to test learners' knowledge on the subject matter, which was all to do with recycling. The final question on the peer observation form is to summarize own session and refer back to the learning outcomes. So at the end of the 15 minutes, it's very, very important that the learner summarizes the lesson. So to say the aim, the outcomes, what did we cover in today's lesson, and it's really just to ask if anyone has any questions as well. So it's always good to kind of see that lesson that it comes full circle. So my comment is yes. So yes, I did agree with that. Stuart summarized the overall lesson aim and objectives. He asked if anyone had any questions before finishing the lesson as well. So I was pleased that Stuart did recap the aim and lesson outcomes there. Just at the end of the peer observation form, we have the overall strengths and areas for development. So what we quite like to see here is that you can provide the learner with 2 overall strengths and maybe 1 area for development as well. So here are my strengths. So Stuart demonstrated excellent subject knowledge and delivered his lesson with confidence and clarity. So in terms of strengths, try and go for 2 to 3 lines if you can. And obviously my second strength here was Stuart was patient. He answered all learners' questions regarding the subject and clarified any points that learners were unsure on. So he was a very, very confident speaker when delivering his micro-teach lesson on recycling. And an area for development, well, I'm going to give him 1 area for development. So when I observed him, Stuart did go over time slightly, and a target would be to obviously to practice timings and to move on learner activities when necessary. So don't be afraid to kind of pause the lesson and to say to learners that we are going to move on to the next activity there. So once again, in terms of level of detail, if you're writing out obviously the peer observation form, please try and go for that level of detail if you can. So all of the boxes have obviously been ticked, And this was a very, very good micro teach. So very well done to Stuart. Okay, just going to move on to peer observation 2 now. And as we can see, this is my next learner, okay, who I observed. The learner's name is Rebecca. So once again, please write your name as the name of the observer. We've also got the date as well. This topic was on to investigate how we use energy, okay. And once again, as you can see, the peer observation criteria is exactly the same as peer observation 1. So I'm not going to go through the observation in as much detail as we know the criteria, but we'll just have a look at some of the comments briefly to show you again the level of detail required for the micro teach, obviously. Okay, so the first criteria was, did the learner introduce themselves and create a rapport with the learners? I put yes. And so Rebecca introduced herself very clearly and explains her working role and her experience to date. So within the introduction, many of our learners do tend to explain their current role and experience. She conducted a fun icebreaker to ease everyone into the lesson as well. So that's always good to do, a fun interactive icebreaker to ease learners into the class. My advice is that obviously an icebreaker should be typically 1 to 2 minutes, and then you obviously continue with your lesson. Did the learner Rebecca state the learning outcomes? Yes, she did. She provided the overall aim and outcomes of the lesson, so very clear. Question 3 is prepare materials which met the individual needs of the learners. I have put yes. The lesson materials were engaging, inclusive, and well prepared. All learners could access the lesson resources. The next question is, did the learner include the entire group during the session? I put no for this. Rebecca asked questions to the whole group. However, Rebecca did not challenge. She did not ask individual or nominated questions. So some learners were missed. So I put no for that. Okay, so that's obviously a learning point for Rebecca to take forward to her future teaching practice. I personally would have liked to see more nominated questions. Okay, and that's just a learning point for Rebecca to take forward. The next question is, did the learner give positive and constructive feedback to the group when the opportunity was presented to do so? I have put Rebecca could have provided more individual constructive feedback to learners to support the flow of the lesson. So again, I've put no, okay. So I would have liked to see more positive, constructive feedback, more praise perhaps within that lesson. So that would be a learning point to take forward to Rebecca. And once again, it's absolutely fine for you to put yes or no, as long as you justify the point there. Next question is, did the learner use a range of teaching and learning approaches to meet individual needs of learners? I put yes. Rebecca used a selection of approaches such as demonstration, paired work, and videos. The lesson had a variety of teaching approaches and activities within this lesson here. Final 2 criteria. Did the learner carry out a suitable assessment to meet the individual needs of learners? I put yes. Rebecca used the video activity and quiz to test learners' subject knowledge as well. So it's a very good initial assessment and formative assessment approach utilized there. And in terms of the summary, I have highlighted that Rebecca recapped her lesson and summarized the overall aim and objective of the lesson, and learners had the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the 15-minute micro teach. So all in all, this has been a good lesson with just a few areas for development there. So obviously I've highlighted those 2 as sections that Rebecca could improve upon. So if we were to look at the strengths and any areas for development, I have highlighted that obviously some of the key strengths were Rebecca's planning skills to prepare an inclusive and an interesting lesson, I was impressed by her resources. The lesson also had pace. It was engaging from start to finish, and learners enjoyed the quiz element there as well. And just looking for one target, I've highlighted that I would have liked to see Rebecca have that confidence to ask more like nominated and individual questions to learners. So everyone was included there. Okay, so that's my second of my three peer observation forms. Once again, hopefully you are finding this video useful in terms of showing you the level of detail. Just going to show you my final peer observation form. This is a learner called Emma, and the title of the session is to introduce the topic of mindfulness. Once again, I've got the date there, the name of the learner, and this is lesson observation 3. Okay, so once again, just to go through the criteria and my own description on what my thoughts were when observing Emma. So this topic was on mindfulness. Okay, so number 1, did the learner introduce themselves and create a rapport with the learners? I put yes. So Emma began the lesson by explaining her role and asking if anyone had any previous knowledge of mindfulness, and if anyone's demonstrated this within their working role and their own personal lives as well. With this lesson, did the learner state the learning outcomes? Emma provided just an overview of what mindfulness is, but kind of skipped the aim and outcomes. They weren't fully clear, so I've highlighted that as a key point there. So when teaching the level 3 award in education and training, I always say it's good to have the lesson aim and objectives clearly highlighted on the board as well, so learners understand exactly what they will be covering during the lesson as well. Next question is, did the learner prepare materials which met the individual needs of learners? I put yes. Emma conducted obviously a well-prepared lesson. The materials, the handouts were really clear. They were very well prepared, and I was really pleased with that. The next question is, did the learner include the entire group during the session? I put yes. Emma included everyone and also delivered a mindfulness practical activity, which included all of the group members as well. So I put yes. Once again, I'd say 2 lines, that level of detail. So you're actually giving examples of what you observed there. Did the learner give positive and constructive feedback to the group when the opportunity was presented to do so? I put yes. Emma provided individual and group feedback to all learners. Emma also paused at different times of the lesson to check in with learners and to find out if they're all on track. So demonstrating quite a conscientious teacher approach there. So very pleased, very impressed with Emma's micro teach. Next question is, did the learner use a range of teaching and learning approaches to meet individual needs of learners? I put yes. So Emma used a good range of methods, such as practical demonstration, discussion, and also questions to the group. So very pleased with that. Once again, 15 minutes is a very short window. So you might only see 2 different approaches there. Did the learner carry out a suitable assessment methods? Did the learner carry out a suitable assessment to meet the individual needs of learners? So I put yes. Emma carried out a suitable initial assessment, and also she asked lots of formative questions during the micro teach to test learners' knowledge of the subject of mindfulness. The final question is, did the learner summarize own session and refer back to the learning outcomes? I put no. Emma finished the lesson on time and allowed for questions, but did not recap the aim and objectives there. So I put no. I would like to see that in her future teaching practice. So just in terms of the overall summary, I put, in terms of strengths, Emma demonstrated excellent subject knowledge throughout the lesson and answered the learners' questions on mindfulness. Emma confidently demonstrated the mindfulness practical activity for all learners to listen and to follow. So it's a clear pass overall. And in terms of an area for development, I have highlighted, I would have liked to have seen Emma highlight the aim and the outcomes of the lesson as well. So that's just an area for development for Emma to take forward there. Okay, folks, so that is my 3 peer observation forms. Hopefully you can see that that is the level of detail that we're looking for here at TrainAid when observing your 3 fellow classmates. If you're unsure of what to write, please obviously get in contact with us and we can support you further. We're just going to move on to the self-evaluation and reflection of micro-teach delivery. Okay, so after you have delivered your own micro-teach lesson, you need to reflect on how you found your micro-teach. So at this stage, what we would like for you to do is think about your own thoughts, how you found your own micro-teach, what was the feedback from your teacher, and what were the feedback from your fellow learners on your course? What did they say about your micro teach? Now, here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down these 3 sections, 1, 2, 3. And I'm also going to share with you my own thoughts of my own micro teach. And I'm going to just explain my thoughts on how I found my actual micro teach. So these are the comments that I've wrote down just about my micro teach. Okay, let's just have a look at the self-evaluation form. So we have criteria 3.2, justify own selection of teaching and learning approaches, resources, and assessment methods in relation to meeting individual learner needs. So what does that mean? So the key word here is to justify own selection of teaching and learning approaches. So in other words, you have to tell us a bit about why you chose a minimum of 2 approaches, resources, or assessment methods. So it's all about the why. Why did you use that teaching approach, for example? And what we're looking for is 2 different approaches for you to reflect on. So I'm just going to read you my response here to the question, and hopefully it should give you some further clarity on how to construct this answer. So I've gone for two things that I used within my micro teach. I used PowerPoint slides. So I selected to use PowerPoint slides in my micro teach to state my overall lesson aim and objectives for all learners to see at the beginning of the lesson. So I'm justifying why I use PowerPoint. It was very clear. I highlighted the aim, the learning outcomes there. And I also use PowerPoint slides to help the flow of the lesson and to keep me on track as the teacher as well. I also showed a video to my learners, and therefore using PowerPoint allowed for me to do that. Okay, so that's why I use PowerPoint. Okay, so it's really just justifying why you use perhaps a resource or perhaps an activity or a particular assessment method. The second key point, I use practical demonstration. So I use a practical demonstration to get all learners to follow the correct technique of how to perform CPR. So my micro teach was on first aid. It was how to perform CPR effectively. So I demonstrated the CPR technique on a mannequin to all of my learners. And I used that to really model how to perform the correct technique. And I also asked learners questions after that demonstration to test their knowledge as well and to give feedback. Okay, so within your within this section, think about 2 things. Okay, and it's all about justifying why you use that type of approach or activity, resource, or assessment methods. Okay, hopefully that section is nice and clear for you to follow. So 2 things, all about the justification. Next section, 5.1, is to review the effectiveness of own delivery of inclusive teaching and learning. What does that mean? So this section is looking at your strengths, okay? What were you pleased with your micro teach? So think about your own thoughts, your own feelings. What were you proud with delivering your own micro teach? So think about the feedback of your learners. What did they say about your micro teach? What was the feedback from the tutor as well? So I've written for my own micro teach, I put a strength of my lesson was my subject knowledge. So I was confident with the latest first aid standards and criteria. I was able to answer confidently any questions from the learners within my class. Okay. Another key strength of mine was the ability to provide constructive feedback, to provide praise. So within my micro teach, I walked around the room and I gave one-to-one feedback on learners' CPR skills. So I gave constructive feedback and praise, which learners responded to and they were pleased with. So think about your own micro teach and really reflect on two strengths. Once again, try and aim for 3 to 4 lines if you can, that level of detail. So a minimum of 2 strengths if you can. Now, the final question within the self-evaluation box is 5.2, identify areas for improvement in own delivery of inclusive teaching and learning. So that is obviously looking at your own areas for development. I guess it's looking to the future and seeing how you can improve. Obviously, 15 minutes is a short window. And obviously, if things didn't go to plan within your micro teach, please don't worry. You can see that as obviously an area for development as well. Okay, so for my micro teach, I have just highlighted that timings I went over slightly. And in my future teaching, I will build the confidence to pause lessons and to move activities on. So I need to be a bit more concise with my teaching and delivery here. So, that's fine to do. Obviously, within my future practice as well, I'll try to embed more ICT, more digital skills within my lesson. So I'm going to try to embed the likes of Kahoot, Socrative, more ICT to make the lesson more interactive. To improve learners' ICT and digital skills. So that could be a target for myself as well. So try and reflect on 1 to 2 areas for development if you can, and think about the feedback from your teacher and your learner. So remember, this is all to do with your own areas for development as well. Finally, you need to sign and date the learner assessment pack there as well. And we also have the course evaluation form reflecting on the course delivered by TrainAid. So it'd be fantastic if you can obviously provide us with some feedback for ourselves to improve our services and our course delivery. So that is the final section of the learner assessment pack. So hopefully you found the video useful, and I have explained the 3 peer observation forms. We've looked at the criteria and what they mean, and obviously the level of detail you need in order to complete this form. So make sure that you have answered each of the boxes. A yes or a no is absolutely fine to include, but please obviously describe and give examples and to avoid one-word answers. Okay. Right, everyone. So that is the end of today's video. Hopefully you found the video useful. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you would like any videos to be recorded, please do reach out to me and I'll make sure I complete that video for you. But for now, thank you very much for watching. We hope to see you on one of our future courses here at TrainAid. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you soon. Bye for now.